What they found inside Charles II's body will horrify you. The secret finally exposed. Let me tell you a story, one buried beneath royal portraits and velvet drapes. A story about rot, betrayal, and a dying king whose body concealed a secret so vile. Even his closest advisors dared not speak it aloud. Until centuries later, when science, and something much darker, unearthed it. This is the horrifying tale of King Charles II of England, and what they found inside him. The decline. It was February of 1685. The royal court was uneasy. King Charles II, once lively and lascivious, a man of boundless energy and scandalous charm, had begun to change. His skin grew pale and bloated. His speech slurred. His limbs trembled. The king, they said, was suffering from fits. But what truly frightened those around him was the smell. A strange, sickly scent clung to him. Not the musk of a man, nor the staleness of illness, but something sweeter, rancid, almost like rotting fruit, like something decaying from the inside. And it wasn't long before the king collapsed. The court's finest doctors surrounded him. A parade of leeches, syringes, and bleeding bowls. They cut him open, drained his blood, forced boiling poultices to his skin. The king's screams echoed through the halls of Whitehall Palace. Yet his eyes stayed distant, glazed, as if he saw something none of them could. Something waiting. The treatments, or the torture. Over the next 5 days, Charles was subjected to over 58 separate treatments. He was bled of nearly half his blood volume. A red-hot iron was pressed to his chest to revive his spirit. He was forced to ingest crushed pearls, deer musk, powdered human skull, and bezoar stones pulled from a goat's stomach. These weren't just outdated treatments. They were acts of desperation. Rituals, almost like exorcisms. It was as if the doctors were trying to drive something out of him. Something ancient and vile. And yet, Charles only got worse. On February 6th, the merry monarch died. But what came next was worse. The autopsy. Autopsies were rare in royal circles, taboo, even. But something about Charles's death disturbed his physicians enough to demand one. The body was barely cold when the royal surgeon made the first incision. What they found was not merely death. It was corruption. His lungs were blackened, as if burned. His heart had shriveled. His stomach contents were tar-thick and foul. And deep within his abdomen, nestled between his liver and intestines, was something unnatural. A growth. At first, they thought it was a tumor, but it was too symmetrical. Soft, pliable, veined with gold. When they cut it open, they found it was hollow inside, and filled with hundreds of what looked like tiny, insect-like fragments. Wings, shells, claws, as if something had lived inside him. And perhaps it still was. The whispering jar. The fragments were placed in a sealed jar, wax-sealed, labeled only as aberrant mass. It was hidden, quietly transported to a remote estate in Essex owned by a loyal court physician, a man named Dr. Emmerich Pell. But Pell kept a journal, and the journal survived. In it, he wrote of hearing strange whispers coming from the jar late at night. Not voices exactly. Instructions, commands in a tongue he could not translate, yet understood in his dreams. He stopped seeing his reflection properly. Mirrors warped when he walked past. The contents of the jar began to change. The fragments pulsed slightly, almost like tiny heartbeats. Until one night, Pell wrote, "The king still reigns. He reigns from within." Then his journal ends. The jar was never found. The mirrors return. In 1812, a mirror was delivered anonymously to Windsor Castle. It was tall, carved of blackened wood with gilded corners, and bore the royal crest burned into the frame. No one knew who sent it. At first, servants reported feeling dizzy around it. Several claimed it made their mouths dry, their thoughts jumbled. One claimed her reflection grinned before she did. Weeks later, a maid went missing. Her blood was discovered beneath the mirror's base, pooled into the shape of a crown. She was never seen again. That mirror, it was removed and placed in the vaults, but not destroyed. Modern discoveries. In 1997, a team of historians gained rare access to Charles II's preserved autopsy records. Among them were strange anatomical sketches, including one of a gold vein sac that bore teeth-like structures inside. They contacted a forensic biologist. After tests on a sample found tucked in the spine of the preserved report, a sliver of golden tissue came back non-human. They ordered further investigation. The DNA resembled insect, fungal, and human strands. A chimera. Impossible. The lead researcher, Dr. Helena Wright, vanished 2 weeks later. Her last email read, "It's not just inside Charles. It's inside us." The royal vein. Across generations, members of the royal family have reported strange afflictions. Night terrors. Mysterious skin rashes shaped like insect wings. Faint whispers in rooms with no one else present. One heir, while undergoing a routine scan, was found to have an unexplained cyst near the same location Charles's mass was discovered. It was removed. Inside were 2 tiny gold-veined wings. He died 3 weeks later. Cause: organ failure. But his last words were allegedly, "Long live the king." He's not done yet. The king beneath. There's a theory, buried in the unpublished papers of Dr. Pell, that Charles II was infected by something ancient during a diplomatic visit to Naples. Something that had been asleep beneath the ruins. An organism? A parasite? A god? Pell never named it. He called it only the Silken Rain. He believed Charles was chosen to carry it, to spread it. That the British Empire was not merely an empire of trade and conquest, but of seeding. That the royals are not just rulers. They're hosts. Hay called him the merry monarch. But beneath the velvet robes and forced smiles, King Charles II of England carried a darkness no court physician could name, and none dare question. When he collapsed in 1685, the official records say it was a stroke. But the truth is far more disturbing, because what they found during his autopsy was never meant to be seen. Not by doctors, not by God, not by anyone. It began weeks before his death, whispers behind heavy curtains in Whitehall Palace. The king had grown pale. Not sickly, no, just wrong. His skin had taken on a faint gray hue, like old wax. His fingernails had thickened, curling slightly at the tips. And worst of all, his breath smelled like iron. The royal physicians called it melancholic imbalance. But the servants told a different story. He doesn't sleep anymore. He walks the halls barefoot, muttering to paintings. There's blood in his shaving water every morning, but no cuts. One footman fled his post after reportedly seeing the king weeping into a bowl of leeches. Then came the night of the collapse. February 2nd, 1685. Charles sat down for supper, reached for a slice of venison, and froze. His eyes rolled back. He began convulsing, violently. Silverware clattered. His body twisted so hard, bones cracked beneath his skin. He muttered something unintelligible, a language no one recognized. And then, silence. When they carried him to his chambers, his blood left dark stains on the floor. It took 3 days to clean. But his death was only the beginning. Tradition required a royal autopsy, and on February 6th, physicians gathered by candlelight. They expected to find signs of epilepsy, maybe a tumor. What they found instead was unholy. The moment they opened his chest cavity, a stench filled the room, not of decay, but sulfur and copper. Inside his lungs, blackened tissue riddled with tiny white stones. In his stomach, a thick gray fluid that hissed when touched with metal. But the most horrifying discovery was what lay beneath his heart. A small bone tablet, smooth and ancient, wrapped in cloth that didn't match any known weave of the time. It was marked with a single symbol, an eye with 3 pupils. As soon as it was removed, the room's temperature dropped. The candles flickered. One of the physicians began to bleed from the nose and screamed that he saw someone standing in the mirror behind them. They burned the cloth. They buried the object in secret. The official autopsy report made no mention of it. But one physician kept notes. Dr. Elias Greaves, the youngest among them, wrote in his journal, "There is something unnatural in His Majesty's remains. This is not disease. This is ritual. I fear we have opened not a body, but a gate." That journal remained hidden for centuries, until it surfaced in a forgotten wing of the Royal Archives in 1972. And with it came a map, drawn in charcoal, showing a sealed chamber beneath Windsor Castle. The journal of Dr. Elias Greaves was dismissed by most as the ravings of a young physician traumatized by a royal death. But what modern historians fail to understand was this. The map was real. In 1973, a small team of royal archivists, under strict confidentiality, followed the map beneath Windsor Castle. What they found was a sealed iron door, engraved not in English, but in something far older. A script resembling early Phoenician, yet twisted, corrupted, like the alphabet had been rewritten by someone who'd only heard it spoken in dreams. The door bore no keyhole, only a shallow groove, long and thin, as if designed to accept a blade. When one archivist accidentally cut his hand on a splintered beam and his blood dripped into the groove, the door opened. Inside, the chamber was perfectly round. No corners, no seams. Smooth stone, damp with condensation. The air was thick and metallic, like breathing through a coin. At the center, a stone table. Upon it, a copper bowl, stained black. And beside it, a book, wrapped in human skin, the spine branded with the same three-pupiled I found beneath Charles II's heart. One page in the book had been marked with a gold pin. Its heading read simply, "To feed the line." That's when the screams started. Two of the team members had stayed behind in the hallway. They were found hours later, both unconscious, both covered in identical spiral symbols scrawled across their arms in what appeared to be charcoal and dry blood. Neither of them remembered entering the chamber. Both claimed they had seen the king, alive, standing in the corner, whispering, "It was never my choice." The room was resealed, the findings buried in red tape, and the journal disappeared. But one photo survived. In 1981, a royal archivist's son uploaded a single image to a private occult forum. It showed the copper bowl from the chamber, still wet. In the reflection of the liquid, a face. But not Charles II. This one had hollow sockets, no eyes, and its mouth had been stitched shut. A rotted crown hung from its head, and beneath the photo was a chilling caption. "The line must never break. The bloodline curse." The question no one wanted to ask was, why? Why would a king carry a cursed object under his heart? To understand, we have to go back even further, to the very foundation of the House of Stuart. In 1603, when James I took the throne of England, he brought with him more than a new royal lineage. He brought a pact. Whispers say the Stuart bloodline was touched, bound to an ancient promise made by one of James' ancestors during a black mass in the Scottish Highlands. In exchange for a powerful reign, the bloodline must offer one vessel every 3 generations. Not just a sacrifice, but a king, a monarch who would carry the seal inside their body, like a living reliquary. That vessel, many now believe, was Charles II. And here's the horrifying twist. Something he knew. Letters written by Charles in the final year of his life, kept hidden by royal order, contained strange, rambling phrases. "There is something growing behind my ribs. I dream of a city made of flesh. They say my father died for the kingdom. I die for the line." He spoke often of visitors who came only when the candles flickered, who wore no faces, but smelled of salt and rust. He wrote, "They tell me to drink. I drink. They tell me to bleed. I bleed. They say, the crown is not on your head, it is in your chest." He wasn't just king, he was container. And what they buried was not just a man. It was a seal, a living lock for something ancient and hungry that, if released, would bring plague, madness, and silence to the royal bloodline. But here's what truly horrified investigators who revisited the case decades later. Charles II had no children that survived to rule. Yet the bloodline continued. How? Because there was another. A secret child. Hidden. Unnamed. Raised in the shadows of France. The vessel had a backup. The existence of a secret child, fathered by Charles II, was long rumored. Historians dismissed it as royal gossip, a product of tavern tales and Jacobite conspiracies. But buried deep in the personal letters of the court astrologer, William Lilly, was a single, coded passage. The king's true star does not rise in England, but in the soil of Saint-Germain, cast under a bleeding moon. Many ignored it, but a few knew what it meant. In 1671, under the cover of darkness, a veiled woman was seen entering a private residence in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, France. She arrived with an infant swaddled in scarlet cloth embroidered with a golden eye, 3 pupils in the center. The child was not recorded in any official document. No birth certificate, no baptism, not even a name. Only one word, written on a scrap of linen tucked into the baby's blanket. Reserve. He was raised in silence, under the guardianship of a shadowy noble house loyal to the Stuarts, one that practiced traditional medicine forbidden by the church. The boy, known only as Le Silencieux, was never allowed to speak. His caretakers said his voice caused migraines, that the very vibration of his words made animals turn away in fear. At age 12, he was found one morning standing over the dead body of his tutor, hands clean, eyes blank. The cause of death? Hemorrhage of the brain, no injury, no trauma. Just a look, just a whisper. His blood was studied in secret, not red, but viscous black like oil. It shimmered with a sheen like mercury. When exposed to candlelight, it moved, twitched, as if something inside was trying to swim. The midwives said he aged slowly. His hair did not grow until he was 16. His heartbeat was irregular, 3 pulses, one after the other, in a syncopated rhythm. Doctors from across Europe came to observe him. Most never returned. The trail of this child vanishes after 1690. Historians believe he died, but documents discovered in a flooded crypt beneath an abandoned chapel in Normandy suggest otherwise. One letter, written in Latin, reads, "The reserve has borne fruit. The pact is honored. The line remains unbroken." A tree carved into the chapel wall bears only initials, no names, each followed by a single red symbol, a spiral, an eye, or a crown skull. One mark appears again and again, every 3 generations. That same symbol found beneath Charles II's heart, the same mark on the copper bowl, the same carved into the locked chamber under Windsor Castle. And here's where things turn terrifying. Because in 2021, a genetic study conducted under the guise of routine royal ancestry testing uncovered a mutation in the blood of certain descendants linked to the Stuart line. The mutation didn't match anything in modern databases. It was older, non-human. Historians beg for re-examination of Charles II's preserved remains, still held in Westminster Abbey, entombed under marble and crown. The request was denied, but a leak from an anonymous Abbey insider revealed something chilling. The king's heart had regrown, or rather, something had replaced it. In the latest scans, the chest cavity showed dense organic material, pulsating with no known structure, alive still. It moves once every 13 days, always at 3:33 a.m. And in a locked drawer inside the Abbey archives is a vial, unmarked, containing fluid drained from the stone around his bones. It hums when shaken. There is a final quote from Dr. Elias Greaves, scribbled in the margins of his journal just before he disappeared. The king did not die. He transferred. There is no crown. There is only the seal. And the seal is still active. For nearly 3 centuries, the signs were faint, buried beneath velvet robes and royal etiquette. But there were whispers. A prince who suffered vivid night terrors beginning at age 7. Dreams in which he would speak dead languages, later identified as Proto-Euphratic. A duchess who began waking up with blackened fingernails and unexplained scratches along her spine, each arranged in the shape of a 3-pointed crown. A royal heir whose eyes would turn pitch black in candlelight, confirmed by multiple staff. These weren't just anomalies. They were symptoms. The curse, or seal, as Dr. Greaves had called it, had not ended with Charles II. It had only gone dormant, waiting for the next vessel to mature. In 2023, a royal physician leaked footage taken during a private medical examination of a high-ranking descendant of the Stuart line, name withheld under official order. The footage, though heavily redacted, showed the subject reacting violently to a blood pressure cuff, not from pain, but from the sound of it tightening. "Make it stop," the subject is heard saying, their voice warping on playback. "It's talking to me." When asked what it was saying, the patient began screaming a single phrase in an unknown language. When analyzed, the phonetics matched those carved into the iron door beneath Windsor Castle, a phrase now believed to mean, "I am ready." During a recent modern coronation ceremony, details withheld for national security, a strange event occurred. As the crown was lowered onto the monarch's head, every candle in the cathedral extinguished simultaneously. No draft, no breeze. For precisely 13 seconds, complete darkness. Audio recording devices captured what sounded like wet breathing, followed by a low, guttural whisper, "Return what is mine." At the same moment, the new monarch's pulse spiked to 333 BPM before dropping back to normal. They reported no memory of the event, but a witness, an elderly bishop, was later hospitalized after developing a sudden and aggressive fungal growth behind his eyes. Before his death, he wrote only one thing: "He is still beneath us, still hungry." Recently uncovered documents from the Royal Archives detail an emergency protocol titled Seal 9X in case of line corruption. The document, stamped with the royal crest and dated 1857, outlines procedures for immediate containment and exorcism of a monarch, including the use of ancient relics no longer in public view. One such relic, the copper crown, said to be forged from melted idols taken during the Crusades and soaked in the blood of 33 kings, a direct counterweight to the monarch's seal. Its last recorded location, a sealed vault beneath the Tower of London, accessible only by a blood king known as the Sovereign Sacrifice. And here's where the story comes full circle. Because the vault was originally commissioned by Charles II, the heartbeat in the stone. In June of this year, a team of urban explorers entered the abandoned catacombs beneath Windsor Castle. They live-streamed part of their descent before the feed abruptly cut out. Authorities found nothing except their phones, each screen frozen on the same final image. A stone wall, glistening with condensation, and pressed against it a handprint, fresh, bleeding, but not human. It had 6 fingers, long, slender, tipped in black, and behind the stone, picked up faintly on their audio feed, "I serve the seal. Now serve me." To this day, the remains of Charles II rest in Westminster Abbey. But some believe what lies in that coffin is no longer a king, but a prison, a heart, a mouth, and that it is waiting for the line to break.